Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Magic Pause podcast. It is our very final episode of 2024. And I'm your host, Annalena. And today I want to talk about a topic that I think is going to be one of the most important things to address and talk about, not only for your personal life, but also especially when it comes to building and expanding a soul-aligned practice or business, however you like to call this. And this has to do with your voice. This has to do with you fully expressing yourself and your truth. And before we dive in, I also want to bring in a little bit of human design, of course. That's one of my favorite topics, as you know. So the throat center in the human design chart is really where all of the energy in the human design center flows to. So, we have a lot of gates and channels in the chart. And at the end of the day, all these energies are always flowing towards the throat center. And of course, this means that there's a lot probably that we need to speak and how we need to express ourselves. And I have found that from my own journey and my entire life growing up, that I used to suppress a lot of what my truth was, right? And that didn't serve me much, obviously, especially as I was starting to build a business and, have a thriving practice. I quickly realized that if I'm going to get into a place of actually expressing what I stand for and talk about my opinions and unique views of the world, it's probably not going to go very far. And of course, then I also learned from the human design wisdom that the throat center shows us actually what are these typical shadows or typical fears that all of us humans often have that are actually holding us back from speaking our truth. And, just to mention a little bit, it's often the fear of rejection is a huge one, or this fear of criticism, which goes back to, well, we don't want to really feel when there is a disagreement coming up because it feels really uncomfortable, right? And then we tend to hold back. And I know personally from my own very early stages of my business that so often, I was writing a post for social media or maybe an email, and I was just writing, like me being an Elena, freely expressing myself. And then I started to think, and I was like, well, but what if there's one person that's not going to like it? And so I caught myself so many times actually rewriting something so that I would not upset someone, so it's really interesting to observe. And that's really a muscle I had to build, because it's not just like, well, I switch it one time and then it never happens again. It's actually something I still work on today, that I catch myself sometimes like, oh, I hope I didn't say something that may offend somebody, even though I didn't mean it in this way, right? What I have learned is much more important is my intention. So if I write something, if that's a piece on social media, again, if that's something in my email newsletter, or if that's something speaking here on my podcast, if I have an intention of actually being of service and helping you, making an impact in the world, I just have to trust whatever's going to come out of me will align with that. And I think I know very well if I don't have a good intention, right? So I think this is something we all can check in with ourselves. And what I have found then, when I'm in this intention of really being of service and helping people from a very genuine place, then I automatically find the right words that God, universe, source wants me to express out into the world. And just right now, I'm doing this podcast episode. Yeah, I wrote a couple of bullet points, but it really connected to this inner urge that I was feeling to talk about expressing yourself, and really trusting that I will know what needs to be said during this episode. And one of the things that I have also made some beautiful connections over the last few months, because some of you may know this already, I have been also studying more and contemplating more of the teachings that we find in the scriptures, in the Bible. And there's actually a particular book called The Purpose-Driven Life. I highly recommend it. it's like a journey of 42 days where there's just like one nugget of wisdom every day that is something that we're being taught in the Bible. And I have to say that every single thing that I learned there was very, very, very similar, if not exactly the same, what I have also learned through the teachings of human design and the Gene Keys and Kabbalah. And one of them that really stood out, I think it was one of the very last chapters in the book, was about people pleasing. Because really, when we're not expressing our truth because we feel like, well, we may ruffle some feathers or we may offend somebody and then they're going to get upset and then we have an uncomfortable situation. If we then hold back our truth, we are people pleasing, right? Because we want to please everyone. We want everybody to be like nice to us in some way and agree with us. We want to be liked, right? It has all to do with that. And in the book, it said very clearly that we're here to please God. And, you know, in the past, when I was hearing something like this, I'm here to please God, I had this kind of idea like that I have to obey and do what I'm being told. But I have really learned over time that pleasing God simply means being truthful to how I feel about what I want to express and everything. And even it talks in the book about talking to God, you know, how to have conversations with God. And there's also something that in the past I thought that, well, I have to find the right way, how to talk to God. I want to make sure God doesn't get upset at me. And it said so clearly in the book, which for me was something I needed to hear. Like I needed that permission slip. It was like, no, God just wants you to be honest. You know, just say how you feel, even if you're pissed at God or universe, source, you know, be honest. How do you feel? And I felt this like, again, this big relaxation flooding through my body. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, because that's just really simple. And that's what I would like to do. And I think we humans, we just overcomplicate things so much, you know? And again, it's the intention behind, you know, if I say something and I know this may not find agreement with everyone, but it's my truth. And again, I come from a pure intention of being of service to the world, then even though it may triggers a person, you know, maybe something that you say, another person is not going to like. They get really triggered. But you always have to know that it's not about you, that's about them. And actually, you are expressing your truth is also you pleasing God, because your truth, I really believe, comes through God, through the field of the cosmos, however you want to call it, right? The universe. Like somehow you were given this truth. Somehow you were given these thoughts. Not to hold them back, I think. It's really here for you to speak it out. And I think what's important, besides the intention we have to set in the beginning, you know, before we speak and we send our message out into the world, like making sure we come really from a genuine, pure intention. Then also as we speak, I think this is where communication skills come in, where we don't talk in a way that we point fingers at other people, right? But, well, they're doing this and this is wrong and they should do it differently, right? So we're in kind of a field of resistance then, I think. And if we are just being really conscious of how we say it, and we can say, well, I have noticed certain things that I really disagree with, and I'm choosing to do it this way, you know, like talk more about myself, yourself in that context. And one of the examples I want to give you for that is a topic that I have talked a lot about on my journey as a podcaster, which I'm now very happy to share. It's almost exactly 3 years now, because I launched the podcast originally as The Art of Slowing Down in 2022. I think it was January 11th was my very first episode. And, you know, here we are almost 3 years later. And I think I have learned a little bit. So the topic is money. And I used to be so scared to talk about money because I was scared that people are going to backlash on me, that I'm going to get criticized and all the things. And luckily, at some point, I found the courage to just start to speak about how I felt. And also what I noticed as I was doing it, because I shared my experience of how I found some practices in the online coaching spaces a little bit unethical, you know, because from my own experience, and this is a decision that I made at the time, you know, I'm taking full responsibility for this now, but I was, for some time, I felt a little bit like a victim, to be honest, because I invested into a lot of programs that I wasn't qualified for in any way or form. I was a brand spanking new coach. It was like about 6, 7 years ago. And I didn't even have a tested program. And I was already spending money on like fancy funnels and Facebook ads. And I didn't even have the money for the ads. And, things weren't disclosed like they should have been. And so I spent money that I didn't even have at the time. And of course, truth to be told, that made things very, very hard and created debt over time. And yeah, this is something that I wish many people now can be aware of so they can make better decisions. And I can see now that because I had the courage to talk about it, and I think over time I have found a more productive way to talk about it was just simply, hey, this has been my experience and I want to share this with you so you can also be much more aware of the purchasing decisions and the investments that you make as an entrepreneur in this day and age. Because let's be real, there's a lot of stuff out there, and we can easily fall into things. And this is also why I love human design so much. It has tremendously helped me with that because I have just learned that, well, I'm here to listen to my body, not to my mind, because those purchasing decisions I made in the very beginning as a pretty new coach, they were often or mostly based on my mind and what I thought I had to do. So I was very susceptible to these very commonly used persuasion practices, right? Where people tell you like, oh my God, just imagine that you make X amount of money and everything's going to be great. And the main focus is just on you making a lot of money, and I lost focus on being of service in that because I felt actually pressure to just even make the money back, So, and I have had lots and lots of clients that have been working with me that went through the very same experience. I want to say like the majority of my clients actually. And I think this happened also for a reason. So I started to realize over time, hey, this is something that I'm here to bring to the awareness of people so that they can make better decisions. And I'm actually going to now say it even in a little bit more refined way. What I witness and I see a lot happening in the online space, I truly find is like high ticket pyramid scheming in some way, right? Where you're being sold, hey, I'm going to teach you how to make 6 and 7 figures and pay me a lot of money for that. And many people do that, but there's really this main focus on that. And the sad thing is that there are actually some people out there that do it in integrity, right? Where there's more of a focus on really being of service. That is always the centerpiece of everything. But then the money aspect is more of a side effect. So just be really aware, right? If there's only talk about making 6 and 7 figures, like maybe be a little bit more careful, maybe ask a little bit more questions, like maybe check out some other offers from this person. And maybe it turns out that that particular coach or service provider is super genuine and there's so much more behind. And because I think, and I've seen it for so many people that I've personally talked to, that they got so discouraged, they got so frustrated. And I think there are many out there that, gave up on their big dream of being a coach, for example, or whatever, gifts and talents that they have to share with the world. Because at the end of the day, we all have bills to pay. And I think with inflation, the cost of living has gone up a lot from so many of us, So that is something that I can clearly see is happening. And I'm also thankful for it because it has given me this drive and ambition to make a difference, to change it. Hey, how can we do this differently? How can we focus more on providing services to people that are actually aligned with where they're at? This is why in my business, you will see that I have a big variety of offers. And obviously, this took me a long time. So you will always find something that's very affordable. Currently, I have a membership that is a monthly membership. It has tremendous value, but it's very, very like low investment for the value that you get, And then there's also one-on-one high ticket. You can work with me, and everything in between. I am launching a human design certification. That's going to be more of a high ticket offer, And it's so important for me that I actually have a conversation with people and make sure that what I have to offer is actually aligned with what their goals are and also what their budget is, but it's not all about me where, oh my God, I'm just going to make X amount of money. And, I don't even care if this is actually serving people. Like, this is something that is against my value of integrity. I just don't want to do it, and I'm not going to do it. So I invite you to come up with your own truth, right? Because my message here is today, like, I want you to be fully expressed. And maybe this is actually a conversation that you also need to talk about. How do you feel about money? In my membership, which is actually now called Bloom, we talk every month about, very honestly, about how we feel about money. It's so healing, it's so nourishing, and it kind of has taken away the stigma about money, and I'm seeing it with the members that they're more and more flourishing with their relationship with money because there's so much honesty, you know? And the flip side of this whole money conversation, I have also noticed over the years, for me in particular, was that I didn't allow myself to make more money in some way because I felt it's always out of integrity. Once you start about 6 or 7 figures, like, it must be out of integrity, right? And I've also learned that is absolutely wrong, because you may make 6 or 7 figures, and that's exactly what's aligned for you and the impact you're making, and to keep your team running and your business running and all of that. And I have come personally to a point right now where 6 figures is something I'm really starting to feel into, and like, whoa, this actually feels really aligned and feels really great. Now, am I going to make this a main focus of my business? Probably not, because that's just not the point of it. But I do feel that many, many people that experience so much frustration with, very high ticket offers that were really not a fit for them, because it was really just about making the money for the coaches and the program, not really about your transformation, then it's actually very easy to fall into this resistance to making any money because we feel like it's something bad, and this is something I had to work on for years. And I'm finally getting to the point where it's like, I think I'm really here to make a very big impact, and I better allow myself to make a whole lot more money, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to do those kind of things. Like, I want to build a team quick, so I want to pay people well. I don't know how it's going to happen and when and all these things, but I know that's in my heart, and I know if I keep playing small and if I keep, criticizing making a lot of money, then it's not going to serve the people I'm here to serve, including myself, obviously. So that's just to give you an example of what it means to be fully expressed. Just talk it out. How do you feel about it? And if that's about money or something else, you will be amazed by how many people are going to come to you like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for talking about this, because I've been thinking about this for so long, but I was so scared to talk about it. That's a message I get a lot from my audience, from you guys. Thank you, by the way. So if that's in a DM on Instagram, or sometimes you guys send me emails, and it always like opens up my heart so much. And I sometimes even have to still give myself a little bit of a reality check of how much impact it makes when I, just sit here and like, let me just talk about what wants to come through in the moment. What is it that feels really important to me right now to speak about? And always know that even though I right now talked about money, that doesn't mean you cannot talk about the same topic. Like, nobody can talk about it like you can, because you have a specific audience that will align with you. We call this in the Gene Keys the soul fractal. And I have a specific audience that will resonate with me, right? And all of us. The other thing is that, because I was talking about people pleasing in the beginning, so in order to get really good at fully expressing ourselves, we need to get comfortable with what? Well, with criticism. Like, as you become more successful and more fully expressed, you better ruffle some feathers. And again, we can do it in a loving way. It's not like we intentionally want to ruffle some feathers, but we need to be okay with having people that disagree with us, and actually not make them wrong, just, okay, let's agree to disagree. We can still love each other. We can still be compassionate with each other, God didn't put like 8+ billion people on this world for all of us to have the same opinion and agree with each other, right? I think every single one of us has a unique voice, has a unique view of the world, has unique opinions. And the 17th gene key actually talks a little bit about this. It's about farsightedness as the gift. And the title is opinion. So here the opinion is reference to, when we are very like in this kind of tunnel view, we're like, well, this is how it is. And if I were to say right now, well, anybody that talks about making 6 or 7 figures, it's a ripoff and don't do it. Like, how the heck do I know that, right? I cannot just judge like hundreds of people that are offering something. Like, I don't know what's happening inside their containers when they actually work with people, right? So I can share my opinion and be open-minded about it. And like, hey, I have seen some, and I really think there's a lot that happens out of integrity. But I also think there's a lot of other service providers that help people actually have a better relationship with money and make more money. And it's all like fully 100% in integrity, So my whole point of this conversation is to invite you to speak your truth more and to really fully express yourself and get away from just keeping everything in draft mode. Because actually right now in this moment, maybe take a little pause, connect to your heart, and just ask yourself, ask God, universe, like, what am I here to share with the world? How can I be of the most service, making the biggest impact in the world with a unique voice, gifts, and talents that I have been given? And let it come to you. Maybe it's not going to come to you right away, and maybe keep asking the question. I often find that it comes to me when I stop thinking about it, when I go for a walk, when I take a shower, when I just take my mind off trying to figure it out. When I'm more open, I'm receiving, I'm a vessel for the divine wisdom of the divine will to come through me. And that's then where the magic happens. And that's when you start to really connect also with your, what we call your soul clients, because just resonate with you speaking your truth. And I think deep inside, every single human is craving so much to speak that truth, because we want to be heard, right? We want to be seen. And I think if we keep stuffing down our truth and unique perspectives, it's actually telling the universe, like, hey, I'm not seeing myself. Because if I'm suppressing my truth, I'm kind of ignoring myself in a big way. And how can I expect then that other people are going to see me? And this is now, especially for all of you that resonate with the projector archetype, the type in human design, because there's always this big shadow of not feeling seen and this recognition piece. And the advice I always give here, and again, this is applicable, I think, for everyone, not just projectors, also especially the two-line energy in human design talks a lot about this as well, is that before other people recognize you, you have to recognize yourself. And so, it's about owning your truth and recognizing that this wants to come through you, and then expressing this out into the world in your unique, kind, loving way, which can also be sometimes, like I said, a little bit triggering to people, right? Or maybe you're a little bit more blunt than me, and some people sugarcoat it more, others less, but we're still speaking the truth, And I'm just really passionate about this. And I think actually that podcasting is one of the most beautiful ways to practice this. This is why I'm a big, huge fan, obviously, of podcasting. And I'm also excited to let you know that later in January, at the end of the month, the Easy Podcast launch will come back for round 3. So I'm super excited for that. So stay on the lookout for the enrollment to open up for that very soon. But before that, I also have a beautiful invitation for an amazing masterclass, which is called Fully Expressed, just like we were talking here about being fully expressed left and right. And this is a masterclass that is happening next week on January 7th, where for 2 hours, we will dive deep into especially the deconditioning piece through the lens of human design and gene keys, so that you can really become very aware and crystal clear of what may still be holding you back, and walk away with some very practical tools that you can literally apply on a daily basis to help you move through what is energetically holding you back from speaking your truth more. So that's a wonderful event to also experience what it's like to be in one of my containers. It's super affordable. You can still get in for the discounted rate. I'm going to make sure I'm going to drop it all into the show notes. And I would just love to see you there if you feel this calling in your body, right? Again, I'm not here to convince you that this is for you, but if you feel like, I think I'm not fully expressing myself, I'm still holding myself back, I would really love to give you that little initiation into it. That's something I am really, really good at, just like, yeah, empowering you and shifting your perspective and energy about it so you start to speak and express your truth more. And look, this is also something for your confidence. Everybody's going to tell you like, well, to be successful in any kind of profession, like we got to be confident. And really, like, how can can I or we be confident if we're not speaking our truth, right? I think it's just literally one of the most important things ever. It's like communicating our truth, and it takes practice, right? It's something we need to do over and over again. And one fundamental truth for me is that the truth will always come out. It's almost like the universe will orchestrate everything in our life in a way that the truth will always come out. So if we're not speaking our truth, if we keep stuffing it down, then I do believe that things will get more uncomfortable, more harder, because God, universe wants the truth to come out. And I wanna hear your guys' truth. And again, you will be amazed by how many people are out there that are just waiting for you to speak your truth. And again, if this is through podcasting, a YouTube channel, in any kind of written form, there's so many incredible tools out there. And I do believe if you're serious about building a very solid foundation for your business, for your soul's calling to serve people, to really make an impact in people's lives through the unique gifts and talents that you have, then it is absolutely essential to keep practicing this muscle of expressing yourself. So with that, I also want to send a token of appreciation and gratitude to all of you for having been such loyal listeners throughout 2024. It really means the world to me. And this year has also been a year where I've expanded a little bit onto YouTube. It was literally the first year that I released, I think, almost every episode on the podcasting platforms in audio format, but also in video format on my YouTube channel. So this has been now also growing slowly. And I'm going to continue doing that because I know that, I can reach more people. And some people prefer to watch the video on YouTube. Other people prefer to listen to the audio. And I'm also so very grateful that we have these amazing technical tools, which I think we call them also, also social media, Instagram, or whichever one you resonate with, but then also YouTube. I mean, it's so easy with just the click of a button that we can reach so many people. And I also know that, so many of you may have a little bit of kind of a on-off relationship with social media, because I know for myself, we can get so easily distracted. But I really have found is that when you can make a conscious choice to use it to be of service and really connect with your unique soul fractal, there's actually a really good chance you're going to also fall in love with the social media and all the opportunities it brings for us to market ourselves literally to the entire world. So with that, thank you all again from the bottom of my heart, and also inviting you, if you want to spend a little bit of time to float a little bit into gratitude, all the lessons that you may have learned this year, all the beautiful things that you currently have in your life that are right in front of you. And yeah, with that, I'm also very delighted and excited to be with you all in the new year 2025 on next week's podcast episode. Until then, take care. I'm sending you all my love and my blessings, and I see you next time. Bye, everyone.